This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in.
The Hits Back with Nahaja Black is sponsored by Scotiabank, Baja Retreat and Spa, Atlantis Paradise Island, First Caribbean Bank, and J.S. Johnson.
Be strong and free. It's the Hits Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hits Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hits Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hits Back with Nahaja Black.
Good afternoon, Bahamas, and welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Nahaja Black. It is a beautiful day here in the 242. I hope that you're doing well, taking care of yourself, and living your best life today. Okay, so we got a few things that we need to discuss today. I got a few things I want us to hit on that I think are important. And I just realized my microphone isn't plugged in. I don't know what's going on. So if you're hearing me and I got a bit of an echo, forgive me. I'll work on my mic when we come from the break. Okay, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We got the House has resumed session today. We had the Minister of Health, Michael Dowell, speak. We had the former Prime Minister give his contribution in the House as well. We also have today, what was in the Tribune, an article from the insurers, from an insurer, an insurance company, Royal Star. I think the managing director there said that it would be asinine, that the government's reduction of VAT, in essence, its impact, in the words and quote by Neil Hartnell in the Tribune, was asinine. And now for me, I'm like, ooh, that's some big, heavy words. I like when we say stuff like that now, because now it's time to dig up and figure out, what is this about? What is this controversy about? And I went to work. I went to deep study trying to figure out what are the challenges here. So we got that part is very important, and so we're going to dive into that as well. But before we get to that, something that I don't tend to talk about long on the show, and I've asked myself this question recently: why haven't I talked about it much recently? And one of those things that I realized, some things you talk about and they seem not to change. So then you ask yourself, when I speak on a topic or when we talk about certain things, is it good for my mental health to keep bringing it up? But one of the major concerns I've had for a long time, is the issue of violence, and especially how quickly we're losing our young men, how there seems to be, I think we've been desensitized to numb the loss. I think maybe that's what it is. That we've kind of had to put young men in a mental category of some form of violence, which obviously we know is not necessarily true. We've had innocent bystanders be killed due to violence. We've had little children. EJ's mother is still crying out for justice for her son. We've had continuous issues of violence by police allegedly perpetrated onto other persons. There's an issue of violence in this country. And, it is something that is vexing, that is beyond politics, right? It is beyond politics, what is vexing with crime. It is no more billboards and numbers, Even last term, this is something that is social. Crime is a social ill, right? The spread of it. I think it's comical to a certain point now, where we criticize the former administration. I remember you would criticize, not the former administration, but this administration at one point would criticize, why aren't you dealing with crime? And I think when the former Minister of National Security would say that, hey, that this is an issue where parents, and Jeff Lloyd would say it a lot, we need to get our parents involved, right? Parents, you need to train your children, and they would be, we would say, well, what are you talking about? But deal with crime. And now we see this government does the same, right? It's like, okay, everybody wants now it's parenting. But what does that mean? Not just what does parenting mean, what are we doing about it? So when you live in an island, let's just talk about New Providence. When you live on an island that's 21/7, every murder, every death seems too close to home. Every single one. After a while, it begins to feel claustrophobic. Every time there's any level of crime, if there's a bumper stolen off a car, you wonder if you are going to be the next statistic. Every time there's an armed robbery, it isn't just that person being robbed, it's you. Every time you hear of rape, it isn't just the lady down the street. It could possibly be you. See, crime in a country so small, crime at the magnitude at which it happens, should be something that causes all of us to think about how we sleep. One of the challenges, I think about it, in my house, I've had people say, well, my mom would say, you know what you need to get? You need to get a bar. The burglar bar is put to the top of the stairs. So we are okay. It is a very uncomfortable position, right? There's a very uncomfortable position when we're talking about how do we protect ourselves further in our homes, right? How do we, in our sanctuaries, figure out a way to protect ourselves? But as a society in large, we're not given really any tools or what I say, tools, strategies on how do we curb crime. It's as if it's an unsolvable equation. But we know that there are places in the world where the prisoners actually stay in the prison themselves with no security. No joke. Without guards. There are places in the world where money is spent on young people to be in after-school programs. So then we come to all of the spending that we do. We talk about our per capita. We talk about how much money we make as a country, where the IMF and the global constructs view us as one of the richest countries in the world, right? One of the richest countries in the world per capita, but we know that measurement is skewed by those who are far more affluent, by the 1% versus the 98. And I say 98 because you got the middle 1% who happens to be middle income. I feel like the rest of us are working class. And that there's 1% in middle income. Obviously, those statistics are nowhere near real. Just don't quote me, but you get my point. One of the challenges in this is that we talk about this success we want. We talk every day about the budget. We talk about how much money is being made, how much money isn't being made. We're talking about revenue leakage. We're talking about asking questions about travel. But what I don't hear, and what I'm looking forward to hearing more of, is actual strategy for social healing and rejuvenation in the country. And I think you can't even do that without first giving people a sense of themselves, a sense of identity of who we are. Why should we look up and consider the common loftier goal? What is the common loftier goal? What was the vision of our forefathers? There must be a sense of self. We are aimless, and our children are coming up aimless because we are aimless. And when I say we are aimless, meaning that there is what is the Bahamian dream? Someone says every Black country, as well as Black community in the US, UK, France, are plagued with murders and high crimes among the youth. And I could believe that to be a case. So now what do we do to change that? See, the difference is I think that we are a Black-led nation. A Black-led nation. Nobody's oppressing us but ourselves. We could change the economic construct of this country if we wish. We could decide as the majority, as we did with majority rule, how we wish to go, but we continue with the back and forth of the same economic idealism of leadership. And when it's a difference in economic idealism, will we be able to recognize it and not be swept away with the mass media interpretation? Because there will be fights against change. And we have to be smart enough on our own to know if the fights are by a wave of the people or a wave of the fight against change, that orchestrated, organized outrage that is not organic. But this issue of crime, I always say, it's amazing. Let somebody cut up a shark And I mean, every media and every group will stand up, but three young fellas, three people dying over the weekend, and we mourn a bit, but it's business as usual. But it isn't just the three, it's everything after that. It's everything about justice. Is it swift? It's everything about, is there a different rule for those who have versus those who have not? Do we trust even the justice system? Do we trust that, that there is fair representation for those who don't have money? That's why I'm a big proponent that we have a defense mechanism that is without the need for big money. We have to have a strong defense system for persons who don't have cash. Well, that's another story here, no there. When it comes to crime in the country, we have become desensitized, but we're too small for it. In Grand Bahama, in Abaco, in Inagua, Cat Island, Rumkey, Exuma. We're too small. How do we fix this? And if buying all of the tools in the world could have solved our crime problems, we wouldn't have crime. But we got a lot of tools. We keep on promoting. We got more boots on the ground, more cars. Let's see how many cars show up under this administration. New cars. Let's see how many more show up. But are we resolving crime? Yes, we as parents and as individuals must consider how we are bringing up our children. But at the same time, we got to realize that there are a lot of parents who can't be there for their children because they were broken. I keep saying broken children become broken adults who build a broken nation. I don't like the disrespect youth, sports, and culture get, in particular youth, in particular, well, the three, I think are quintessential, are essential for the identity and building of a nation. We got to deal with crime as a people. We have to be serious about it. It has to be something that is strategized, and then all of us must be told this is the steps needed. You must create spaces that are healthy and safe so that our children after school don't have to worry about pedophilia, don't have to worry about, the rapist uncle or aunt. So we have to now start looking and seeing, okay, how do we deal with these issues that are vexing? Because those who have will find a way to protect themselves and their children, their investments, and leave. What does that leave us with? A ever increasing impoverished class of people that are more in need of the support of governance, that further pulls on the constraints of governance and the financial pockets. But this is something that's vexing. Just as COVID is vexing, crime is vexing. And our young men, we should be in alarm because if we truly are a Christian nation, we understand the importance of men, good men. I'm not talking about male. A man who understands his responsibilities, a man who understands that he is the pillar of his family. If we have men, young men dying before they can be a husband, before they can be a father, or if they're a father not able to raise their children, dying on the streets. And we're not outraged by this. How many families find themselves in ruin because the father has found himself out of work? Not out of work, but without them. There should be some national outrage on the rate at which we are losing people. But I understand psychologically, because we seem not to be able to fix this. And they say parents are to blame. But I said, find yourself a parent who isn't trying, and then go and ask that parent some questions. Ask the parent some questions. Ask them what is going on. Why can't you help your child with homework? Why aren't you there in the evening? Ask that parent some questions rather than being judgmental. And then maybe we can get to the root of the problem. People always want to judge the fruit by the tree, But sometimes the tree is still an apple tree. But some need to ask, okay, why is the fruit coming from the tree rotten? Is it an insect problem? Is it from the soil? Do we have to get rid of the tree? Can you tend to it? It's still an apple tree. Let's get to the source of the problem. Get to the root of the problem. If we start addressing the root, then we will be very grateful and happy with the fruit. But we keep on judging people from the outset, from the outside. You have too much children, you breed too much, and never ask, young lady, when did you have 6 children unmarried? What happened? She might very well say, I wanted 6 children, I didn't need a man. Then you move on.org. But maybe there is a story. What happened to the young man who has 6 children everywhere? What happened, sir? I tell your brother, Daddy, I don't know. I never knew my father. All I knew was this is what man do. Now we need to get to the societal issues. And then must be strategic devices by which we govern, by which we bring about change. It can't just be, we need to add more this in terms of a thing, but don't get to the soul or the spirit of the thing. You know, Pastor Miles always used to say, we abuse what we don't understand. If you ever want to know how something truly functions to its capacity and its full potential, you go to its creator. Sometimes we need to step back and ask, what is the creation of this thing? All right, and you'll make it or not your business. You might be right. It just might not be your business. But I think before we judge people on the outset, let's start digging and finding out the true story. And then we can really have true analysis on how we deal with this. But at some point now, we've got to get to a point where we are beyond weeping, and now as a nation demanding more strategic outputs and strategies when it comes to our young people. And if it is truly going back to parents, how do we help our parents? What is it that we need? And then when you find out what you need, you go into providing the needs. Everything got to have some sort of intention. And when we're not intentional, then things go on the wayside. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, my good friend C.A. Nuri joins me. Chris Curry, Dr. Chris Curry will also be joining us at the 5 p.m. mark. But we'll be back after this. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents are the best. Reliable service, we've been on the scene, protected since 1919. J.S. Johnson Insurance has the test. You'll always cover me. J.S. Johnson Insurance, peace of mind.
Baja sugar, let's get sugary. Softer, smoother, and amazing skin. Oh, Baja sugar, we're the sugar ladies, giving you skin soft as a baby's. Goodbye hair, we'll take good care of you.
Come visit us at Baja Retreat Spa on East Bay Street. Contact us at 323-6711 or visit us online at www.baharetreat.com.
We are working to protect our country, our people, and our livelihoods so that we can move forward. The vaccine is safe. The vaccine is easy. The vaccine is essential for our recovery. If we want to rebuild our economy, if we want to get back to our jobs, if we want to get back to our lives, our families, we must do this together.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. I hope everybody's doing well, taking care of yourself, living your best life today. The issue of crime is a real serious one in country. And I think definitely if you're a praying person, please pray, because not just prayer. And, prayer changes things, but we don't even know what we're praying for. What you praying for? Crime to cease? What are we praying for? Right? I think we pray that our leaders get the level of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and then we as a people also get a sense of who we are and what we need. Not just what we want, but what we need and the direction we should be going in that can truly change the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, so that the wealth is indeed common and that safety is paramount for all. It is a personal civil right. It is our right to be free. But if I worrying about bars in my house because of crime, that's a whole other story. See, Henry joining me. Adrian Mott says Nassau is a kill zone. Said he's in Switzerland. He's Switzerland now and hiding. Good to see you, Adrian. See, Henry, welcome to the show, buddy. How you doing?
Hello, Nahaja. It's always good to be invited on your show, and thanks very much for the invite.
Yeah. Okay, my friend, it's good to have you. Sorry, I was just about to just move on from that and say, yeah, no big deal. We do this every week. So I got to ask you, just on that, the issue of crime and the level of intention needed to pay attention, to deal with the vexing issues of crime. Just over the weekend, in one sitting, and we don't even call these mass shootings. We lost 6 young fellas in a car. We had one more time, I think it was also in Camp Road area, where folks were standing outside and there was like a spree. And now we have another 3 persons standing outside. We have children in their homes or standing outside, ending up dead. We don't even call them mass shootings. I wonder, just as a thought, I'm surprised. We don't call these mass. In the States, this would be considered a violent shooting, right? A mass shooting, a terror shot or something. Well, this is just Saturday. Are we losing are we desensitized? Have we somehow categorized all of these shootings as somehow justified, that people deserve, they must be involved with something, so they're going to die, and this is it?
And Nahaja, what you're suggesting and saying is very sobering. I had a cousin who happened to had been shot over the weekend and died, right in front of his home, right? And it's most unfortunate. The entire family is distraught, and my condolences goes to the immediate family. And
my condolences, my friend.
I understand why you question whether people are desensitized. I know we had spoken about this before, and I told you that I'm used to murder in the Bahamas now. This is what Bahamians do. We murder, right? And I say that flippantly to get people to understand and appreciate that perhaps we need to do more. Perhaps this narrative that we are putting forward, perpetrating, is not adequate in dealing with it, right? You said that we don't use the word mass shootings anymore. That's because we are used to murders, right? Mass shooting means that it's something out of the ordinary, that it deserves an immediate response, that things must be put in place. But clearly nothing is going to be put in place. We will go on as usual tomorrow. And as you see that we'll have more murders and we'll forget the other murders afterwards, right? What was starking to me was the Camp Road shooting, when 6 men died in a car, like they were targeted.
Yeah.
Right? There's no witnesses. There's no leads.
No.
And we have moved on. Right? We don't worry about the families anymore. The children we left behind, right? The people who are traumatized by it, right? So when I see people speak about crime and they don't necessarily want to deal with the impact of crime, how it impacts me, how it impacts the wider society, I say, these things happen. Until you want to deal with the conversation and put things in place, some checks and balances, that you can't stop the murders itself, but there'll be checks in place that will either force persons who commit the crime to be caught immediately and be punished immediately, or there will be systems in place that the families who were impacted are able to get the type of treatment and attention they need, and those families who are broken will be able to take advantage of resources that they can improve their living so it doesn't continue. These things aren't happening. So tomorrow, I expect there'll be 1 more murder. Then Saturday, 3. Then Sunday, 4. And I'm used to such. And my goal now is for me to stay alive, and hopefully no one in my immediate family suffers that kind of ill fate.
Okay, so... And you hit on something so strong. So murders are up 68% for the first half of 2021. And I'm trying to look at murders and homicide rates. Barbados at right now is at 9.7 murders per 100,000. I think that's what it is. And I'm looking for countries with similar size. But my point is, I always, well, obviously, listen, we know Jamaica is high, right? But I don't care about other places really more so than I care about us. It just gets smaller. I feel like we get smaller and smaller. Like the island, these islands are just, there's not enough room. I got to worry about eroding beaches. And plus, if I go on the beach, I might get robbed. I can't even watch the rest of the beach erode for fear I might get robbed while I was watching the waves crash on it. There's death, there's crime overall. And it's like, okay, it's Monday. Okay, it is. Let's go in the crime section, and it's just very. I won't lie to you. It's very disturbing to me. We have a caller. Let's get the caller line. But for me, it's just I'm finding myself weary and heavy of this. I always tell people my family. I got 2 little nieces who don't know their daddy, both, and that is real life. That's family. You know what I mean? So I think that we this is crazy times, man. Caller, you're on the hit back. Welcome.
Yes, good afternoon. How you doing, Nahaja?
I'm doing well, and you?
Great. Your show is always an excellent one. It brings a lot of things to the table, and you deal with matters that are really, really concerning to the public. So you're really doing an excellent job. I'm a first-time caller.
Thank you.
What I think is really, I want you to just be strong through all of this, and then once you continue to read your Bible, and the Bible say, the Bible basically say move on and try not to be fearful of when you move on to certain things. Don't take that burden on to yourself. Allow that burden to be held by at least God, I would say, because he said put all your burdens on Him. So I just want you to just be encouraged. But I would like to say this. While I was shopping to a particular place, and a lady had 2 toy guns on the counter, and I was cashing up some things. Not me was cashing up, I was next to the cash at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I said to her, right, I said, excuse me, I say, are you buying them for your boys? And she said, yes. I say, well, why would you buy them toy guns? I say, you know how many persons died from the hands of a gun? I said, that's how you're going to grow them up? You're going to give them a gun? One day they're going to want a real gun. And guess what? She politely moved them off the counter, took them back, and she got something else. She didn't even ask no questions. Mm-hmm. Okay? And yesterday I was standing by another place. A little girl was standing up, and a little boy, he's no more than 5 years old. And I was standing up by the shop, and he said to me, him and his little sister was standing up waiting on their mommy to come out of the shop. And he said, mister, you hear all that loud noise? So I said, yeah. He said, you know what that is? I said, no. He said, you ain't got to worry about nothing. That ain't no gunshot. Just like that. He said, and I was stunned, right? So I just look at him, right? And he said, mister, you ain't got to worry about nothing. There ain't no gunshot. So he said, they fire cracker. They fire cracker, they firing off. There ain't no gunshot. So what he's basically saying is that he's so used to hearing gunshot, he's putting me on guard. Because I was ready to run when he said, that ain't no gunshot. I was going to leave him right there.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, So I got to end it right now. So the situation is now really, in all seriousness, the situation is now in the country is this. It's that we can no longer do the moonwalk. Like only Michael Jackson made money from moonwalking. He was going backwards and he was making money forward. Mm-hmm. We cannot continue to do that. See, what happens is when we are trying to do things right, meaning that we are approaching situations. I heard when you said that you before you criticize, at least try to see what's going on the inside. But you see, let me tell you what the problem is, Nahaja. This is deeper than that. Because what happened is you're fighting an enemy who is not willing to give up. See, there's a difference between fighting persons who are willing to hand their hand out for you to take them out of the water and rescue them, other than someone who you're going to rescue who's trying to drown you in the same token. So sometimes what you have to do is you have to stick to what you know is right. Because sometimes when you help persons in a certain way, they feel like you're helping them to elevate their conduct, their behavior. If Nahaja Black's son is locked up, let's go and get him. Don't care what nobody say. Hell with them. Let's just deal with him, put him down, and whenever he gets in trouble, let's just get him out. So he's in his own mind. Don't forget, you cannot place yourself in his position because
Very true.
Pardon?
I said very true. You can't swear for these children. I got another caller, but I appreciate the call so much. Listen, I appreciate the call. Let's get to the next call and we'll have a further discussion. Caller, you're on the line. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Nahaja. How are you?
I'm well, and you? Thanks for calling.
Oh boy, I love calling your show. You always have a great show. Even when it is something bad, but you make the good out of it, and that's why I love to call your show. What's going on inside our country? That answer could be in one word. I agree with your caller before the last. He spoke about biblical thinking and righteous stuff. What happens here is that I sum it up in one word: love. Because you see, as a child, I grew up with both parents. I had friends that only had one, and some had no parents. And see, that's where it starts. You see, I've got to share when I'm young. I've got to be concerned when I'm young. I've got to just listen, and older, we grow into these stuff, these guns and these drugs. They're always inside the community. What we do now is that instead of passing those guys that needs the love that we got, we just hail them, stand up, talk to them, and if you share that love, he has got to think about picking up that gun, it comes from his mind. It doesn't come from his heart, because if it came from his heart, then that Jesus that should have dwell in there would slow it down, would cease it. Okay, and our community can become greater again. Okay, the Boys Brigade, the Girls Guide, the Scouts, the urban renewal, and those guidance councils and schools that work so hard. It matters. And sometimes, yes, Daddy doesn't come home. Yes, sometimes Mommy's always angry. But then because I got some love from somewhere else, then I can give Mom and Daddy that love too. You see, the bottom line is love. And yeah, you might go to church and the sermon mightn't be about love, it may be about something else, but still, then you bring that home from there. And I'm talking like this because I've had that experience. But to think about killing and stuff like that, man, come on. Our country doesn't need it. We must bind together and yes, pray again. Continue to pray and continue to go to church. Continue to share. Continue to love. Never give up. In 2 short years, we're going to celebrate our golden anniversary. Our country deserves all of us. Together, let's stand together. In Jesus' name.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for the call. You can give us a call, 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. Or you can text us at 422-4796. CA Nuri joining me on the show. Here is where, and special thanks to the callers who called before. Where I also think about this too is CA. I remember, I think it was Sweden. It's either Sweden or Norway, one of the two. Always rich countries, right? They got money to spare, right? Because crime isn't new. The issue is vexing. You look at places that are, like Chicago in the States, like we just gonna have to kill these niggas. We gonna have to get rid of the police, the black, and I find that's the black on black crime meccas. That's what white folks say. Y'all need to deal with this black on black crime. Don't talk about police shooting black people, but it's a whole other kettle of fish. Here is where I have a challenge, even in our discourse. We, the Bible always talks about where your heart is, that's where your treasure is, or where your treasure is where your heart is also. I realized something interesting in the last few years, right? Normally, ministers who get the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Culture feel as if they get a demotion. Like the minister who gets that post, all of a sudden feels as if this what y'all give me? Like it is the lowest one on the totem pole of all ministers, right? Like that's the lowest rung. And if you get moved from there, like we had permanent secretaries get demoted and sent to the Ministry of Youth and then say, hold on, I'm retiring, right? Like they're like, y'all know this don't make no sense. So there is little respect or understanding, I believe, of the importance of those three factors in our society, right? That they are nation building entities. And I think that is just a reflection seen within country. We put more money, so the amount of money, and I wish I had the budget with me, and I should, so I could be able to speak on this intelligently in terms of cost, but the amount of money we pump into policing, if we could take just a certain percentage, 15%, if we were to take the budget for the new cars we purchase so that our police officers don't have to walk a block and lose 100 calories, if we could just take that 15% of funds and actually put it to building up youth infrastructure. There are existing youth organizations that don't need more government involvement other than government funding, government support. Give them some support to help do it. You don't have to hire new people. They are already working. All you need to do is help them so that they can put the paint the court and, maybe hire a young person from COB or UB to be the basketball coach who's already playing basketball for the university. You could say, okay, listen, university students, you want to be a teacher? So come on, I need after school support here. We can give you a stipend, a small stipend to be a tutor in after school care. Put more funding into the libraries. Allow the libraries to be that place where children can imagine again. More money into youth efforts and sports. I'd mentioned one of these rich countries. They had some issue with loitering, right? So the kids after school, instead of being out, now the kids are, their parents work until 5, so they had this issue with the hours of 3 to 5 p.m. And so the country, I can't remember, but I'll search it online. The country decided that with all of this excess funds, they forced every young person to have an after-school activity, CA. Every young person had to have an after-school activity so that the kids wouldn't be smoking weed, so that the kids wouldn't get themselves into problems of loitering. Every young person had to be signed up for an after-school activity. That's a country with millions of people. We struggling with 400,000, as if somehow we are so big that changes can't happen, in weeks. Yeah, it's flabbergasting to me. And we're going to talk about revenue because you need to use some of this revenue. Y'all say you're going to charge me now. It's a whole other segment. But we got to start talking about developing a nation, like a real nation building strategy. CA, your thoughts? Before I get to the call, I think I have one more call.
I had you, and I appreciate everything you said. The caller before mentioned or reminded us about community, and I appreciate.
I think we lost CA there, so let's take this caller. Caller, you're on the hit back. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Nahaja. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and you?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I just turned 66 yesterday, and I give God thanks in health and strength and everything. When I was growing up, Miss Black, I had BB guns, I had pellet guns. When we used to go to the movies to the Capitol and watch Geronimo, Audie Murphy, John Wayne, everything like that. When we come home, we react to what we saw, the cowboys and crooks, we change roles, you the good guy, you the bad guy. But one thing I like with those movies, at the end of the movie, you always see the bad man getting locked up in jail. Yeah. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that. Always getting locked up. So the movie always portrayed that you cannot do wrong and get by. And I never once, my brothers, my cousins, all of us had BB guns, like I said, and we never pointed at anyone. We never went out there and robbed anyone. And I can say for sure right now, if I can recall, there's none of my family members never went before the court, never went in jail. We grew up with the guns and everything, the firecracker guns, you put the thing and it goes off. But we never had that problem. You know why? Because we had parents who told us never go there and do wrong because there was a punishment for it. David said in the word and in the book of Psalms, say, son, give me thine heart and let thine eyes observe my ways. What children do, children like to say, monkey see, monkey do. They mimic what's carrying on in the household. Not only that, even with the television, the television babysits your child, seeing violence and people just cutting off people's neck, or they stab someone, they take the knife and lick the blood off, and they taking that from the cradle right up. When you're growing up watching those movies, when someone got shot, you never see all the blood. You might see one little trickle of blood. The violence today, it's a mindset that is getting our children the way they are, and then discipline. You have children, right?
Yep.
What's the age of your children?
10, 8, and 1.
Let me ask you this: do you discipline them?
Heck yeah.
I'm not. I'm not just talking with the belt, and the belt comes in at a time, and then correction. You know what the Bible said? Do not spoil your child. Say, don't withhold the correction from your child. He said, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. Withhold not correction from the child, for thou beatest him with the rod. He shall not die. Did you die getting beaten?
No, I never get beaten like that. My mom listening to me like that. She was too tired after the mother children.
But what I'm saying though, that you must know your child. There's time for the rod, and there's time the way to take away privilege. But you must know your child's temperament and everything, the way you should discipline your child. Yes, there's time for that rod to come in. I mean, for outright defiance, and that's discipline time with the rod. But if a child pour another glass of water and the glass drop, you don't take a belt and a frying pan and hit the good, beat the child for that. That happens to adults. So you must know your child, how to discipline your child, and then set the example, because they mimic whatever they see adults do. One more thing. Somebody knock on your door and they say, Mr. Black, you want to buy one computer, you want to buy one laptop, or cell phone? Just give me $100 for it. Now, you know that ain't cost $100. So there's an appetite for stealing. And people, there's a culture for it. But if someone comes to your door and if every behemoth do that and say, hey, I don't want that, show me the receipt where you bought this computer or this phone or whatever from. But we accept it. That's a deal for me. That's a sweet deal. So there will continue to be a culture until we as the citizens of this country say, hey, I'm not going to accept no stolen. Nobody can knock on my door and try to sell me a laptop. It costs $600, but you can sell it for $100.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. A point there, CA, because I know we lost you, but just on a point there with culture. Corporate culture takes about 2 years to change, and it starts from the top. National culture has to be something that's intentional. I do believe that. It may be that, hey, you and I may be saying, okay, I ain't taking your cell phone. But then there are 5 other people who will be like, I know that fella down the road will take the cell phone, so why shouldn't I take it? Now, what if we had a cultural or a national disposition where from the top, the discussion of, not just the discussion, but the fight against corruption, the intention of theft is weighted so heavily that we see it in justice, right? That it moves quickly, right? So regardless of if it's white collar or regular collar, this injustice will be dealt with swiftly. If I find you with a bumper from somewhere else, you will get dealt with. Now we understand there are consequences to the big house for small things. And it must be where the government says we deal with our house first. We're going to deal with our house. So we can deal within the government sector where there's leakage, where there's some issues of theft, We could deal with it, and we're going to deal with it publicly. And then we could tell everybody else, if you take a tip at these offices, you're going to lose your job. And we're going to make a scene. This is something where I think culturally it starts from the top. Let us, if our politicians would stop being allegedly corrupt, I think that we wouldn't be carrying on believing that the public treasury is the purse of the party that's involved. But CA, your thoughts on this whole crime thing before we switch gears?
And I agree with you. And between you and the caller, what your ideas is wonderful. It's refreshing to even hear. I do believe we have a cultural problem. I remember Bishop Gomez said we are culturally corrupt. And that was in the 1980s where they had the Commission of Inquiry. But we have not addressed any of that culture in terms of trying to guard us and shepherd us into being a better characters. We need to have a national mantra, right? Where we define what is the Bahamas, what is Bahamian, what is our ethos, what is our culture, and just have the entire nation move towards that. I think that may be the call for now. There needs to be a national call for volunteerism, right? For communityism, building community, where we are too busy trying to shape our communities instead of being idle and covering our neighbors' stuff, right? And I think that's what it is. The jealousy and enviousness is causing us to have a corrupt mind or a reprobate mind. But when you start having that community feeling where you are uplifting your neighbor and helping in their success, where you invested inside their success, where you spend money for that child down the road to go off to college, and then when they come back, you welcome them back to the community. I find that you care about them. You care more about whether they can walk home safe. You care about Miss Sarah's son down the road, her daughter, what she's wearing. Miss little Susie, I don't like that dress you're wearing today. And she understands that you said it out of love instead of trying to debase her, right? So we need to start up that conversation. Sometimes crime is just too big, right, to look at and deal with. We become overwhelmed. And perhaps we need to go to pockets of communities and say, well, let's deal with that particular community and solve that problem, then move on to the other communities afterwards.
Yeah, no, great ideas and suggestions there, CA. And I think your point are beyond, your contribution was very deep there. I mean, usually it's very good, you know. No, your contribution is very good, depending on how shady you are on the day. But I think I love that idea of national volunteerism, where we are now saying, and I think Bahamians want to have a loftier goal, right? Like a national goal. If you can imagine any government saying, or, you know, with intention, hey, listen, we believe we can reduce crime and paint the picture. You know, you ever tried to buy, you ever been to one of those timeshare places? You could stay free, but then you got to go to the timeshare tour. I love those just for the mere fact of how well they sell, right? So when you're done with this whole tour, you've spent your time and you know you got to do the stupid tour, and you go and you sit down, and the first thing the person says is, tell me about what you'd like to do in your free time. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be? What would you like to do? How long would you like to be in Italy? Or this, that. And they paint this picture that you help to create, but they give you the words and the ideas and you fill in the blanks. And before you know it, you try to ask your spouse, you think we could really afford it? I think we could afford $8,000. That's a good idea. But my point in all of that is this, that if we were to have that loftier goal, imagine saying we can see a Bahamas where crime is reduced by X, Y, and Z, graduation rates for our young men up by this point, enrollment in university coming on par by this time level between the sexes. If we could do something like that and paint that picture of a Bahamas that is doable based on numbers and metrics, and say, but I need you, single mother. I need you, husband and wife. I know you got your 3 children, your 4 children, but all we need is an hour a week if everyone would get involved. And if you're in this area, I need you to volunteer. Go online to this website, pick a space, and give us an hour of your time. This is for the national good. Then we start to see the buy-in, the loftier goal. And where people aren't looking down on each other, we're all in this together. Because I assure you, living behind a gate don't protect you, because once crime moves from one area, it'll move to the next. This is a national issue, and children and men and women were dying. And this is a problem that is too vexing to move on from because we're tired of talking about it. We have to come up with solutions. So yeah, let's take a break. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. My good friend, Dr. Chris Curry, will be joining us as well. We got a lot to talk about. I want to hear from you. We'll be back after this.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. My good friend, C.A. Nuri and Dr. Chris Curry joining us on the show today. Gentlemen, welcome to The Hit Back. Doc, what you say?
Man, I'm right here. I'm happy. I'm on the 5th floor today.
You're on the 5th floor? What's the 5th floor? I need to check.
That's 50 and above. I was on the 4th floor as of Friday. By Saturday, I made it to the 5th floor.
That's right. I was supposed to say happy belated birthday. I haven't tasted the cake yet, but when I get on that, I'll let you know how I go.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel all of 50 today.
Man, listen, Cecil been looking all of 50 for at least 4 years.
Man, but yes, I am looking 50. But Chris is definitely 50. I have come some years ago. Miles to walk before I reach there.
Miles to walk. Listen. All right, Chris, before we switch gears, because I want to talk about a few things whilst all of you are on the air. But just your quick thoughts on this issue of crime in country, dealing with crime. What are your thoughts?
I think what happens sometimes is we like to try and departmentalize crime. We like to think as is in someone else's neighborhood, someone else's island, someone else's area, that it doesn't affect us. And it's so surprising when you think about it, because we're such a small island community. Especially here in New Providence, we're only 21/7, but we still like to think, well, that's Kemp Road, or that's Nassau Village, or that's Bain Town. But the truth of the matter is crime can happen anywhere and everywhere. And an injustice in one place is an injustice in every place.
Yeah. And I agree with you anyway. Someone says, Doc, you need a backdrop. Just throw that out there, Doc.
My backdrop?
You need a backdrop. This nature conservatory you dealing with ain't working. All right. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about today, and I know and this crime thing I didn't plan on starting that way. It was just something that was really a burden in my heart. So that took a lot more time than I thought, and I had no intention of going to that vein, but I couldn't not discuss it. Mm-hmm. But this is some things that have been in the news that I have to share or talk on, and I'm so glad you two are here with us. Dr. Chris Curry, and of course, I think, we call it honorary co-host on whatever day he's on, C.A. Nuri, joining us on the show. All right, so we know that the House is in session. We've had the Minister of Health speak, Dr. Dowell. We've had the Minister of the former Prime Minister speak, Dr. Minnis. I now know that the Minister of National Security, Wayne Monroe, is on. I was just told that. And so I'm curious as to all of these speeches. And all of these speeches are worth listening to. And as we have the supplementary budget debate, that'll also be quite interesting. But I wanted to hit on, let's go to the Minister of Minister of Health, and some of the comments that the Minister of Health has made today in the House. So today, the Minister of Health, the Honorable Minister Dr. Michael Dowell, he laid on the table, y'all, 2 health services rules. So these are the 2 documents that we were looking for. Of course, November 13th, we're moving away from the executive order. And what was promised, and I know the former administration, one of the reasons why they had come out of their break, their last session initially, was to lay these rules, right? To give us some sort of emergency rules or health rules so that we can move away from the emergency order. That never happened. We ended up with the session being ended, election, blah, blah, blah. So now we're here. And the minister said that he's laying these 2 rules. The health services, COVID-19 prevention and management of community spread rules, and the Health Services COVID-19 General Rules. Okay? All sound just like long-winded papers, but let's see what he says. All right, so I want to read this part that he shared here. Sorry, I got too many papers here. All right. On the 13th, Madam Speaker, on the 13th of this month, November 2021, the current COVID-19 emergency orders will fall away and the competent authority will be dismantled. And someone says the Minister of Public Service also spoke. Oh, that's right. The Minister of Public Service was a Pia Glover role. Yeah. We are amending Section 29 of the existing Health Services Act so that the management of the COVID-19 pandemic will now be the responsibility of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. See, you hear that? It'll be the Ministry of Health and Wellness's job. These new rules will replace the emergency orders. They will also allow us the flexibility to make adjustments as the need arises to respond to the changing variables of the pandemic. The significance of this milestone should not be taken lightly. Since March 2020, the previous administration used the emergency orders as its primary tool for managing COVID-19 and gave reason after reason after reason why they had to extend these orders, even as our country appeared at the bottom of global and regional rankings in our management of COVID-19. Madam Speaker, I am very pleased to report that in recent weeks, COVID case counts and the nation's positivity rate have been falling. On Saturday, for example, there were 11 positive results of the 385 PCR tests conducted for a positivity rate of 2%. This represents extraordinary progress. We are pleased to note this improvement took place despite concerns that changing the curfew would cause a spike in cases. Instead, the opposite has happened, and we'll pause there. All right. So that was announcement, shade, congratulate myself, all in one. Just like, all right, I mean, we made some big announcements. We're going to throw some shade, and then we're going to pat ourselves on the back and say, despite what you thought, the numbers are coming down. I walked away with some questions, and still I'm happy that this has happened. I think we needed to I know we needed to move away from the emergency orders. I think, Cecil, you and I both critiqued that it was too much centralized in one person, that we needed more people around the table from different aspects of different skill sets to help us determine and chart the way forward. The rest of the world is viewing COVID-19 as an endemic, not a pandemic anymore. However, we are still far away from that vaccination total, even though we know countries that are fully or have greater vaccination outcomes like Singapore, like Israel at 80% they are still they're in their fourth wave of COVID. So we know that vaccination doesn't dull the impact of COVID. So that's always still a concern with me with the narrative, everyone get vaccinated. But your hope is that, it will reduce the amount of persons in hospital. But some folks are saying that ain't necessary, but that ain't the show today. So you have that there, and I think that that's good. Also noted, I thought it was very slick to note, or reminds the orders to stand in front of criticism that the emergency orders did not help us in dealing with the COVID outbreak. So it was very wise to make sure we remember that and recall that, because we stayed at the bottom of the global COVID chart. We were like second to last. And then we jumped up one spot to move from 179 of 180 countries to 178. But we are reducing the numbers. And I haven't had that question answered. How is this happening since we still ain't at 30? I think we finally hit 32%. I think we hit 30% fully vaccinated. We know it ain't a vaccine all of a sudden giving us this level of downward spiral. Is it that most of us already had COVID? And now we just naturally immune? Like, I don't know what's going on. What do you think, Chris?
Black Friday, that's the answer. Bahamians want to shop in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Atlanta, wherever you want to shop, they want to go. And so they know if they want to catch the sales, they got to get vaccinated, because Uncle Sam say, no vaccination, we're not letting you in. So there's an uptick. I know that sounds terrible, but the truth is we like to shop. Somebody, I think it was Patricia Glinton McCullough, says that to be Bahamian is to have the God-given right to shop in Miami.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. What, CA, your thoughts? I'm trying to figure out, though, CA, what is the reasoning for our downward trend in the numbers?
But so the numbers are trending downwards globally. I see for Halloween in the United States, not a soul wearing a mask. They're all up and in the clubs and onto each other.
Yeah.
So I think we have gone around the bend. I think that is now an endemic, like what you said, is trending downward. And I think that we're looking at the tail end of COVID-19. I don't expect to see any more spikes anytime soon. But I'm impressed. No, I'm grateful. I wouldn't say the word impressed because I'm still frustrated and waiting on what is the plan for the government. But I am confident and I am moved that they are moving forward in terms of ending the emergency orders. They have an overarching plan that they plan to enact, and the government must be congratulated for that and celebrated for that, right? So we just need to have some flesh on the bones now to know what the plan is exactly, and continue to do what we do: social distance, wash our hands, wear some mask, and I see no reason why 12 o'clock need to be curfew. They need to do away with this curfew thing.
Someone just said they need to end this curfew. Yeah, literally someone texted they need to end this curfew right when you said that this 12 o'clock curfew needs to end. We still have to figure out what's the data on that. Chris, you wanted to add something? I saw you wanted to add something.
No, I just think the numbers are telling. What I found most interesting is the number of tests. I think you had over 360 tests done, and you only had 11 reported positive tests. So the test case ratio is really dramatic. I think he said it was about 2%.
2%, yeah. 385 PCR tests and only 11 positive.
And to me, that is more telling than any other figure if you look at it, because what it's saying is, even though we're having a lot of testing, we're still reduced the number of positives to under 20. We haven't had that in a very, very long time.
Very, very long.
So I agree that we're seeing a resolve. We're seeing a very good pattern. And I agree with CA. I don't see us having another wave, because what we're seeing concomitant with the reduction in numbers is the rise in vaccinations. If we are hitting 130,000, that's very good. I wouldn't say we're at herd immunity. We have to get to about 80%, which by my estimation requires us to get to about 250,000. So we're still a way away from that.
If most, and this is why I say, because we're not close to herd immunity by the vaccine standard, right? We're 32%. I think last time I looked at Alex's chart, we're 32% fully vaccinated. And so then I'm asking, are we at a place where because you can't tell me, based on what we saw at the height of this pandemic in the months of July through September, and the height of this, where there were so many people passing away in the hospital. You knew that there were households who were sick, households. Did we get to a place where there were more of us who had COVID and we got through it? And then, because, one of those, I remember Dr. Sands sent me a chart one time and he said, listen, if they're saying it's 200 people who are positive, then consider it 3 times that amount that's actually out in country, right? So 600. That means that we're not close to even measuring how many people had COVID. And maybe the percentage of recovery, which I think we were at like 90% recovery rate, right? So we would, based on testing and recovering and all of that stuff, we were pretty high. I think a lot of us probably had COVID, and now we got this moderate bit of, immunity where, COVID might still be around and we're like, yeah, but I had you before. I don't know. Maybe there is that level of herd immunity that we don't know about. But Dr. Nakia Forbes says, just because the numbers are going down, there's no time to start, acting all willy-nilly. I just want to get to the point where they say no more masks. Like, how long are we going to be all vaccinated and still toting masks? Like, I so over this mask life. I wear my mask, though. I didn't vote for Trump. But your thoughts here.
Also mentioned, Nahaja, I know we did some testing in Inagua, and I'm not sure if I heard the results of that. Because at one point in time, we thought there was an outbreak there, and it seems like we overcome that. And the same thing with Eleuthera. I know they have a private company doing some mass testing on that island also. The government's able to facilitate. But I don't know the numbers. And I remember that those 2 particular family islands were trending upward. And it would have been good to know that they're able to nip that in the bud and solve that issue. But I'm not sure if we got the numbers for that. At least I don't know any numbers for it.
There were numbers, and I'm trying to remember. I know they said and I think someone says it was like 3 positive tests out of 183. But I know that they did a lot of tests, and it was a small number who proved to be negative. And what they said was that there wasn't community spread, but the island is small. You know what I mean? The island's already small. So technically, I don't know, but how would you measure it as community spread? But I'm with you. We definitely, I know that there were numbers given for Inagua. I don't think we got anything for Harbor Island or Eleuthera yet. Chris?
I think one of the paradoxes of COVID is that what used to be sought as a negative in our country, which was the very remote and isolated and marginalized communities, actually were an advantage. I'm thinking of places like Mayaguana and Ragged Island, Rumkey, you name it. Those islands who have very few people coming into their communities and have survived basically on their own, for better or for worse, for a long time, that was an advantage for them. But the communities where we saw some spread are communities that have a fairly large traffic of people coming in. You think about Eleuthera, which is a tourist destination, whether it be Harbor Island or mainland, North Eleuthera, etc. You think about Exuma, for example, because of the home porting and the cruise ships. And then you think about Long Island, and the traffic goes there quite a bit. So I think, communities that were remote, they actually benefited, ironically, from their isolation. But communities that had higher volume of traffic and movement of people, there was a challenge there, because while they had a higher volume of traffic or movement of people, they didn't have the institutional structures like clinics and healthcare workers and testing centers to administer what they needed. So that was the challenge, I think, if you're looking at a pattern across our archipelago.
Yeah, and that's what the former administration argues as well. Listen, we at least had that as a plan. We knew that the Family Islands couldn't take outbreaks. And the irony of it is, of course, that the former administration waged war against this present administration for the outbreaks on the Family Islands, but at the same time wished to claim that their implementations of COVID protocols are the reason why the numbers are down. So it's like, pick one, just pick one. I actually say, just watch your success in work and in action, right? I would have left the COVID outbreak alone in Inagua if I was the opposition. And then as it started to peter off, you jump up and you say, see, y'all know y'all can't take this. You won't give us the blame. If I was them, I would have said, you won't give us the blame for Inagua, but it's our protocols that have saved the lives and caused the numbers to go down. Because technically, I don't know for sure what the PLP did to help these numbers go down. So I'm just saying that we're in this in between, but it's fascinating stuff. I want to read this before we switch gears, take a break and switch gears. This is from Dr. Dobble. Even though cases have been falling, we cannot let our guard down. The virus spreads more rapidly indoors, and indoor gatherings with poor ventilation and large numbers of people can become super spreader events, ones which could threaten the progress we've made. It is for that reason that the rules outline protocols for businesses, social gatherings, and other activities. The rules are easy to read and understand, so Bahamians can be clear about the requirements and enforcement strategies. These rules also outline the requirements for international travelers entering the Bahamas and the requirements for domestic inter-island travel, and addressing testing requirements and specific circumstances that permit exemptions from COVID-19 testing. Madam Speaker, the second set of rules, called the Health Services COVID-19 General Rules 2021, speak to the management of COVID-19 in the country, essential COVID-19 protocols, COVID-19 testing supplies, facilities, and the reporting of results. It also outlines the process regarding enforcement of these rules and the penalties of non-compliance. Another important component of these rules is the appointment of an advisory committee that will be comprised of experts in epidemiology, supplies management and logistics, health services administration, and public health, among others. This advisory committee will advise and make recommendations regarding the management and control of the pandemic so that we can continue balancing public health concerns with the need to fast track our economic recovery. All of that said, I still ain't too sure what these rules are. Yeah, I don't know what the rules are, but hopefully
just waiting on the rules. Just waiting on the rules. Whatever the rules are. They've been tabled, so we look forward to them getting done. Someone says, Nahaja, people taking the vaccine because they are aware of their friends and family are dying, and many dying after just 2 days. After 2 days of taking the vaccine, or 2 days
after being affected by COVID-19. I think after being affected by COVID-19 is what they're saying. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, the former prime minister spoke in the House today. I thought it was interesting. I thought the speech was interesting. I want to get your thoughts. We'll be back right after this.
Working to protect our country, our people, and our livelihoods so that we can move forward. The vaccine is safe. The vaccine is easy. The vaccine is essential for our recovery. If we want to rebuild our economy, if we want to get back to our jobs, if we want to get back to our lives, our families, we must do this together.
What does Christmas mean to you? What about making a loved one's face smile bright or driving your own car? CIBC First Caribbean gives you up to 100% financing on auto loans. Apply online and let our auto financing take you places this Christmas. Visit CIBCFCIB.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
We're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. My friend C.A. Nuri, Dr. Chris Curry joining me on the show. CA, you're not the only one whose video freezes at the most inopportune time. You know, I just said, I got to check who y'all powered by. Yeah, that's it.
And the thing is, I plugged in. If I was on the wireless, I wouldn't have mind. But I actually plugged in the Ethernet. It's concerning.
Yeah, no, it's concerning. I don't know. We have to discuss this.
Made that phone call.
Yeah. Don't say no name on air, though.
No.
Either one could be a sponsor. I meant all could join. I could be powered by anybody.
I need to call them. You need
to make a call. You need to make a call, man. Make a call. All right. So whilst we wait for Dr. Curry, who definitely seems to be powered by nobody. He's probably not even powered by BPL right now. It depends on what day it is. The former prime minister shared his speech. He had a speech today, right? He had a speech today. This is his first big speech in-house, of course. Like every other minister, there's a first or member of parliament, first big time, sharing his thoughts and whatnot. And I thought it was interesting, right? I thought some parts of it, I was like, oh boy, it takes a lot of gall. You know, it takes a lot. I can appreciate some of that, right? Like I can appreciate you being you have words that you want to share, right? So let me share some of what the former prime minister shared. And then he also spoke in great detail, in great length about the Prospect Ridge area as well. But this part I liked a bit, right? Madam Speaker, we remain in a deadly pandemic. The Bahamas will experience other waves. We must begin preparing for the upcoming waves now. The Bahamian people elected a different government. We accept the will of the people. We returned to office as the sitting prime minister, I would have given a national address within days to address the state of the pandemic. Indeed, throughout the pandemic, we held regular press conferences. I addressed the nation on many occasions. Unfortunately, the new prime minister has failed to give such an address thus far. Many Bahamians are confused as to what the government's plans are. The government seems to lack understanding and direction on dealing with the pandemic, just as they did when in opposition. Now, see, that's why I paused, because I thought he was going to say, just as we did when we were in government. But he didn't. Okay, he didn't say that part. They have more than a communications problem. They have a serious policy problem. And then he goes on. I didn't get to listen to the speech, but he practically repeated the entire editorial article from the Tribune that was dated October 26th. So that was kind of said the entire article and used it as a part of his speech, where the article was titled, and you guys can search it up, Dr. Darville needs to take charge of the COVID fight. And I gather it must have been a scathing one against Dr. Darwell, and it goes on for well over 10, 15 pages, right? It just keeps going, right? And then finally, he says, this is a very disturbing editorial. It represents the views of the opposition, and many Bahamians that the new administration seems lost. That's like, come on, man. But why would you, why? I understand what your point is. I understand your point. But is now the time for you to point out anybody being lost? I don't know. Okay, well, let me keep going. Let's just keep going. The prime minister is in the main seat. It is also up to him now. Throughout the Caribbean, in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and in other countries, the pandemic's response has been led by the heads of government. In the United States, the White House regularly briefs the public. In Britain, there are regular briefings from number 10 Downing Street, the location of the office of the Prime Minister. The Bahamas' Prime Minister appears to be missing in action on the pandemic. Now, mind you, the Prime Minister, has he done a national address yet?
Yes.
He did. Yes, right?
Yes, he did.
He did.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Is he indifferent to what is going on? Yes, he did do address right away. Okay. Does he understand the nature of a pandemic?
Don't laugh, Nahaja. Don't laugh.
I'm trying not to. It's just too funny. Said, does he understand the nature of a pandemic? The country needs leadership from the Prime Minister.
There you go.
Wow.
The country needs leadership, Nahaja.
Leadership from the Prime Minister. The country needs to hear from the Prime Minister. Oh, when in opposition, the PR like to place the blame on the F&M for much of the pandemic. Now they seem to be blaming the Bahamian people, as suggested in the Tribune editorial. Now, mind you, Darwell did go on one whole thing there. Okay. They were responsible in opposition, including the failure to support certain emergency measures. They have taken this responsibility into government. The difference is that this time their responsibility will have deadlier consequences. What a time. You can't make this stuff up. I don't even know how to keep reading. Okay. Should I keep going, guys?
Well, one must appreciate that the Bahamas has minister fatigue. And the idea that he has the audacity to go in the House of Assembly and pontificate like this shows that the leader of the opposition has some gumption. I was going to use another word, but he has some gumption. And I appreciate any man who has gumption, I see the passion inside his voice. Mm-hmm. I see the charisma in him in general. And I think right now he's proven to be the amongst the opposition. And I say I want those who support the F&M and those who watches the opposition in general to compare him and to the other persons who are contending to be the leader of the F&M. And perhaps Minis would be a better opposition leader for this time. Because now, and mind you, there's a smile there. But he is comfortable with taking the blows, and of course, there'll be many blows rain on him. But he's willing to catfight with the best of anybody.
No, and this is fine if this is the long game too, right? And but I'll finish that. Let me just move on because I'm not about the long game. Chris,
I wanted to say a couple things. I just think it's quite ironic how he is talking about how this government lacks empathy, how they don't seem to care about these people, how they don't seem to have a media presence, how they're not available to the media. It's so profoundly ironic and hypocritical. This is the same man who turned his back on media, refused to give regular briefings, regular news conferences. Is this the same man? Did Dolly get doubled? What happened? Is this a clone? What's going on here? I agree with CA, though. It seems like he's perfect in opposition because he can point fingers and no one's really going to question him. But when he's
point all the fingers too. So you know that adage where they say when you point one forward, point back at you.
All 10 digits that he got, he pointing them all. He's firing with all cylinders now. But where was his press conferences when we were in the second wave? Where was his press conferences leading into the election? He was out campaigning when he should have been speaking about this third Delta variant. He wasn't doing that. But man, now he's saying, no, you'll need to be out there. Where's your compassion, Dr. Darville? And he's been playing the blame game good. Because he's saying basically that Darville was blaming the dead people for the COVID. I mean, come on, man. You can't do that. You can't blame the dead people. I just think it was good rhetoric, but
someone have to get blamed. Someone got to get blamed.
That's the blame game.
I love what someone texts. It's laughable. People forget, but not that quick. I mean, it's just it is laughable. It is anyone else we would be questioning, mental capacity. Like we would question, right? But we ain't gonna do that because I know he's fine and this is politics.
And wasn't this the same man that was begging for forgiveness and crying at the church for all the misdeeds that he did?
Yeah. Right.
I done forgive him. You gotta remind him of his sin. I done forgive him.
Boy, he's bounced back fast.
You're a forgiving man, right?
Yes. He's absolved all his sin.
And he did it in church.
Forward now. Let's move forward. Don't remind him about his past. It's about his future.
It's about the people's future.
It's the people's time.
It's about your future.
It's finally the people's time. You know what I mean?
I listen. I was floored. I was floored. I mean, he really said what he said. What are we gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do? He said what he said, right? Like he said what he said. What are you gonna do? The difference is this time their responsibility will be deadlier. Will have deadlier consequences. I mean, really, and it just kept going. It just kept going. The opposition and many Bahamians were alarmed and still have grave concerns of the handling of the pandemic and the family islands by the government. The government, when in office, had a firm policy concerning the family islands. I like how he said firm. I like that. I was confident. Our policy generally worked.
It was definitely firm, that's for sure. Autocratic.
A lot of lockdown.
But it generally worked. I mean, all of a sudden it waffled like right from firm to generally.
Generally worked so that we was ranked 179 out of 180. Yeah, that's pretty good.
We weren't last. Our island communities do not have the major hospitals and intensive care units that exist in New Providence and Grand Bahama. We knew that if the virus was allowed to run wild in the family islands, it would be difficult to treat all of the sick people. He's right on that. Since coming to office, the government has irresponsibly and recklessly loosened restrictions. In recent weeks, there have been outbreaks in several family islands. Residents have gotten seriously ill. Some have died. So, this is where. So when we had residents in New Providence, in the Mecca, get seriously ill and die, we weren't firm. And the thing didn't generally work, but we had a firm solution for the family islands. It's just why I keep talking on this. Just don't talk on this. Do what the PLP did to you, which was let you stub your own toe.
We also need to appreciate the reason for the speech. He wants to read it into the records. Some of the complaints he had initially for the PLP, and I am quick to say that I am not comfortable. I'm not happy with Dr. Darville's response thus far, right?
And I think we can all agree that, hey, it was slow response and we thought they really had a COVID plan, but free testing has come.
Yes, we did think that.
Not in mass yet. They pilot projecting the free testing, but it's more than what the former did when it came to testing. So listen, I will say that I thought that there was a day one plan on COVID. I really thought there was a day one plan on COVID. Apparently, there was a day 90, a day 60.
It's a month later. We're hoping it comes soon.
But they gave us something that the former administration promised and didn't give us, which were these ways to move away from the emergency orders. I have a lot of questions still on that, where what happens to industries that were pretty much suffocated by those emergency orders and dying out, like the wedding industry, like your events industry, industries that were major revenue generators within country. You can't afford to lose those. So how do these rules impact those? Or are we just shifting the power of lockdown to someone else? You see what I'm saying? Like, I have questions.
Nahaja, the straw market needs to open.
Yep.
And we need to have Junkanoo. Whatever plans he planned to say, it needs to be based on that, how he plans to open up the straw market and how Bay Street is going to have Junkanoo come Christmas. And this should be the conversation right now. Let's have some plans regarding that.
We need to have Junks. I spoke to someone. Chris, your thoughts before we switch gears?
Well, I just wanted to say the one good thing that I heard coming out of Dr. Darville today was the idea that you place the maintenance, the controlling system of the COVID pandemic in the hands of the medical professionals in the Ministry of Health. So doing away with the competent authority allows the persons that have the expertise in this sort of things, the epidemiologists, others, they're the ones that are going to give the guidance. They're the ones that are going to be working towards figuring out what we should do. The competent authority, yes, he was a doctor, but he is not an epidemiologist. He doesn't know about disease spread and all of that. And so, the thing is, putting the control in one man's hand was never a good thing. A one-man band approach wouldn't work. Now it seems to be in the hands of the right people. That's what I liked.
Yeah, and I still need on that board too when we talk about it. And this is where the power comes in. We need to know to what max or what limit. Do they create the recommendations, or are they responsible for the new guidelines? Will they keep until perpetuity masks? What is the line?
Nahaja, I'm kind of uncomfortable with this because I didn't vote for no board. And this is the economy. And this is my job and my living and my survival.
And that's my thing. Like,
right?
How much power does this health group have?
Yeah. If they say lockdown, I can say, but what about my job?
Yeah.
They need to come up with a plan on how they can give me some money also. And if they don't have a plan, then the prime minister and the people I voted for need to interject and say, hey, there got to be some checks and balances in between.
And Nicole asks a great question. Who makes the ultimate decision? Because my thing is, what are the issues we had at the beginning of this was where we felt that the health people there was no, economics people to the table and saying, okay, I understand what we need to do in X, Y, and Z here. How will we now make sure that the economy, if it can stay open, this is how it will function under those rules until we are able to? Do we necessarily need to shut it down? Or don't forget now, Dr. Forbes, she said on multiple times during this pandemic, we need to have a place where people can quarantine, isolate. We need to do more testing, right? So that when we test them and they're positive, there are spaces and places where they can go to, where they don't have to worry about food. They can just go and isolate and quarantine. Now, if that's what we're talking about in the Ministry of Health, then we got something. But if we just gonna be like, oh, but Jesus, we got an outbreak, lock it down. I need to know the powers within health. And that's why knowing the rules of the parameters is very important to me. And giving it to the ministry is fine, but these are health people. When there's a health crisis, that's health. Whereas the economic side, and that's also important as well. So we need to find that balance. And these COVID rules, I'm happy there's no more competent authority, because child, that was too much power in one man hand. Too much power. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to switch gears. We got one more thing to talk about. The Prime Minister, there's two more things to talk about. And I ran out of time with the first one because I want to talk about this insurance thing. I really do. But I also want to talk about the Prime Minister's his statement on Prospect Ridge. So let's take this break and come back. Let's see how we can get back to that as quickly as possible. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Dr. Chris Curry and C.A. Nuri joining me. We'll be back after this.
Working to protect our country, our people, and our livelihoods so that we can move forward. The vaccine is safe. The vaccine is easy. The vaccine is essential for our recovery. If we want to rebuild our economy, if we want to get back to our jobs, if we want to get back to our lives, our families, we must do this together.
What does Christmas mean to you? What about making a loved one's face smile bright or driving your own car? CIBC First Caribbean gives you up to 100% financing on auto loans. Apply online and let our auto financing take you places this Christmas. Visit CIBCFCIB.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the hit back with Nahaja Black. It's the hit back with Nahaja Black. It's the hit back with Nahaja Black. It's the hit back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, my good friend C.A. Nuri, and of course, my illustrious friend. I say my good friend C.A., but now I got to run out because I got a doctor on set, Cecil. Get used to it. Don't even cry about it.
I'm a doctor.
Set. Dr. Chris Curry, okay?
But I'm a doctor.
I know. Doctor of Trapsy. We figured that out a long time.
Once I get a degree.
Honorary Trapsy degree. I got
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
It's good to have you guys on. Okay, so something else the former Prime Minister, and I'm still the most honorable Hubert Alexander Minnis, he went on. So of course we know we had this heated this back and forth, and he had promised that he would have a discussion on. So I have it here. So he promised to have a heated discussion on this Prospect Ridge development. And if you remember, this was something that was brought up by the new Minister of Transport and Housing, Minister Colby Davis, MP for Yamakro. No, Elizabeth, right? Because my good friend, that would mean my good friend Dwayne is still in the house, but boy, another one bites the dust. Anyways, my good friend. So here's what the Prime Minister said with regards to Prospect Ridge. And I'm so happy you both are here. So let's go through it. Madam Speaker, I wish to address a matter, and this is the former Prime Minister Hubert Minnis again. This is his speech today, a part of his speech today. I wish to address a matter that is the subject of considerable public discussion. The Committee for the Development of Communities for Young Professionals was appointed in April 2021. The government intended the Prospect Ridge community to be the first community for young professionals. The work of the community was carried out over a period of approximately 4 months. This was done on two fronts: the application and the development processes. The committee designed the rules of the program, including to give priority to persons based on the following criteria: the lower one's incomes, the younger one's age, if one worked for the government, and if one did not own a parcel of land. Special consideration was also given for those with disabilities. The Digital Transformation Unit of the government built a digital application process on the My Gateway platform, which automatically weighed the criteria noted above and had the ability to rank the applicants. Committee members held meetings with commercial banks to explain the program and the partnership anticipated. The commercial banks made preliminary assessments and provided letters to the committee to support the level of mortgage applicants were eligible to receive. So to support the level of mortgage the applicants were eligible to receive. Accounting firms conducted an independent first review of 1,500 applications to ensure compliance with the application criteria. He continues, Madam Speaker, Parliament passed a resolution to transfer 83 acres from the Treasurer to the Crown in April 2021 for the purposes of the Prospect Ridge community. Architects completed the conceptual sketch of the community. An environmentalist was utilized to carry out the environmental impact assessment and environmental management plan. The environmentalist completed and submitted the EIA. The Department of Environmental Planning and Protection completed its first review of the EIA and requested that it be augmented with topography and other studies. The committee carried out the bidding procurement process to engage service providers to carry out the infrastructural and architectural drawings for the community. based on the conceptual sketch and other specified criteria. The bid submissions were evaluated and a recommendation made to Cabinet for approval. The bid process and assessment involved the technical experts of both the Ministry of Works and Ministry of Housing. Cabinet agreed upon the service providers, and the Office of the Prime Minister communicated this to the successful lead bidder and requested a draft contract. I note this information for the benefit of the House and the public record. All right, that was a lot of words. All right, it doesn't sound like, it sounds like a lot of stuff happened. So the idea that nothing happened, I think now is very interesting. And plus he brought in Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Housing, both were a part of this. I want to get your thoughts on it. Chris, your thoughts first.
Well, my thoughts is they didn't account for the processing by which people actually acquire land and build homes in the Bahamas, because, you still have real property tax. You still have to put something in towards a mortgage. There are other factors that would have made this a difficult challenge for young entrepreneurs, young Bahamians. And I think the question of who would actually qualify is still out there. I know they had a criteria. It seems like they had 4 criteria in general. They had, it seemed like a software to figure out their algorithms or whatever to determine rank and order. But obviously there were some objections to this whole plan, as it turns out. And it wasn't a done deal, according to Jo Beth Davis when she gave her public press statement the other day. So, you have to read between the lines. I'm glad that he was transparent, but at the same time, it seems kind of interesting that all of this was done from April until about July and August, which was just before the election was run. So, it's just interesting.
CA, your thoughts?
Well, I'm happy that the former Prime Minister, the leader of opposition, addressed it. And he addressed it and he put some time and effort to respond and go into detail. It was clear that something was done. And I know that the minister suggested that it was just a shell, but clearly something was done. And I believe that this project was on the initial stage. I believe that this was a special project, apparently, and not necessarily going through the Ministry of Housing. I think this is a project coming through the Office of the Prime Minister, and that the Office of the Prime Minister would have facilitated to make sure it come out to fruition. If oh God have mercy, if the FNM had won the election, right? If right, I think that it would have come into fruition, and that the houses would have been sold and built upon, and everything was going to go like how it's supposed to have gone. So I'm not too caught up with who to believe, whether to believe the opposition leader or the Minister of Housing. I think everything is subjective. They're both telling the truth at this present time, just from different perspective, and that's what it is. It's a special project. I think that it's going to be concluded with if they had won the election, and I understand and appreciate what Mrs. Davis said. I think that the information that she wanted was not yet made available, and that the former Prime Minister suggested that it was incoming. So that's how I conclude with it.
Yeah, no, I'll go with that. I think overall, there was a lot of talking on nothing. I think both of them said what they had to say, and it still doesn't answer what now for the applicants, right? What now for the applicants? And I think that's the end of it. What now for the applicants? Especially, I read through a few times the former Prime Minister's response, and I knew there was a lot of words. Yeah, and it's just like, it just reminded me of PGC back in the day. It's a lot of words. And then you try to go through it and said, okay, but was there something substantive where I could say, okay, yes, we had a date. Yes, we were certain that we had a plan. Our plan was there. And I think one of my favorite, I think the best line there was, the committee designed the rules of the program, including to give priority, and they gave the age basis. It said committee members held meetings with commercial banks to explain the program and the partnership anticipated. And that the commercial banks made preliminary assessments and provided letters to the committee to support the level of mortgage applicants were eligible to receive. And so that, and I'm wondering that there, the commercial banks made preliminary assessments and provided letters to the committee. And I like how I said letters for whom? Letters for those who are applying, or letters to the bank, from each bank to the government saying, this is how much we are willing to spend with you to create this development. And see, though that's ambiguous there to me. Who were the letters for? The level of mortgage applicants were eligible to receive. How can a bank determine what a person is eligible to receive unless that person banks with them, go through the DSR? And so the stuff like that is just a bit, I don't understand it on the context of the entire story. So that they leave questions and they make it ambiguous. So it's like saying something, but not saying anything clear enough for me to understand where you're going with that point. So I just heard a lot of words that technically it reminds me, like I said, of PGC. Just say the table is round, my brother. Just say the table is round. There's no need for us to talk about where the wood came from. Get to the actual point of the question. Is the table round or not? But we digress. Something before we go. Literally, we have 2 minutes. So I want to get your thoughts. No, because I wanted to dive into this, so we won't even go there. I'll let you guys round up from what all you've heard so far in the House of Assembly, what you've seen so far. Chris, I wanted to ask you this. Where do you see the government? Where would you rank them right now? This is their first, are we on 60 days yet? I feel like this government been around too long, long. Are we on 60 days yet?
She's setting you up, Chris. She's setting you up. Watch this answer.
Mm-hmm. No, I think they've done well in many respects. I think they've been very transparent. I love the press. Ironically, I like the press briefings that everyone was railing about with Clint, because I think they've actually handled them very well, very professionally, and it does sort of raise the bar. I think Brave gets a pass for being away because he's actually been at the United Nations and now he's in Glasgow, right? Mm-hmm. So he has other people, and I think he's been very good so far with delegating responsibilities to other people, whether it be Chester Cooper or Dr. Darville today in the House of Assembly. But I do think that he does need to continue to be consistent and having his own media availability and pressers, because the people do need to hear from the Prime Minister. And so I hope that when he comes back from Glasgow and he's rested, he'll have a national press conference.
We really want and need that charted course for the next, give me at least a year. Tell me what's the plan for this year. I'm still waiting on the economic plan. I'm still waiting on that, Y'all worry about COVID. I need to know how we're going to build up this economy. People got to work. And there's a lot of tax discussion. And these increases, and we have to be honest here now that you're affecting, when we start talking, I got to go. I can't believe we got to go. Because that whole thing is a whole other show on this taxes and insurance, because that's a whole other segment. CA, last thoughts, we got to go. You unmute yourself. Last thought, you got to unmute yourself.
The PLP is always feeling for great ideas. I expect some wonderful ideas and wonderful programs to come into fruition. And my conclusion is see how they panned out and how they execute. So I wait to see how they execute in contrast to bringing up the ideas. I expect great things to be coming out.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We need definitely this. We need to see now the plan. We need to see it. All right. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Chris Curry, C.A. Nuri. Thanks, guys. We're out. See you all tomorrow. Be blessed.